Thank you, President, and I'm pleased to move motion 746 in my name, which effectively calls for the Legal and Social Issues Committee to inquire into and report by March 2026 on the issue of permitting capsicum spray for self-defence. Now, before I start, I think we should outline a few facts about Victoria and what's happening at the moment. First obvious fact is that there is violent crime in Victoria. There are a lot of people who fear violent crime. There are people who have been victims of violent crime, both in their own homes and on the streets. That is the first fact. The second fact is in Victoria, we have the right to self-defence, as in any decent country in the world. If you or someone that you care about, or indeed even a stranger, is being attacked by a violent criminal, you have the right to defend yourself or to defend others. And this is a right that comes from respecting individual bodily autonomy and respecting individual property rights. And of course, the primary form of property that anyone owns is their own body. The next fact is that there are many people in the community who, for various reasons, cannot easily defend themselves from harm by criminals. And we are talking, many men are quite physically large, and therefore they have a physical advantage to be able to defend themselves against people. But many other people, like older people, like women, like people who have disabilities, they find it very difficult to defend themselves even though they have this right. And so we end up with a conundrum, a dilemma, where we have the right to self-defence, we have the right, but with no means of enacting that right or exercising that right. It's like that right doesn't even exist. Now, I've spoken to many people who feel vulnerable and concerned in the community who want to protect themselves. Lots of women will be familiar with the stories of their dad or someone else telling them to carry around keys and use in their hand and, somehow punch someone with it, which from my understanding is a sort of rather fantastic idea, but not really realistic. Other things like people will carry around some sort of spray or something like this, hoping that it might serve some useful purpose if they are attacked. But the reality is that none of these things are really effective forms of self-defence. And in fact, in Victoria, we have this weird situation. If you carry them for the purposes of self-defence, that in itself is a crime, which is sort of crazy. And so what I would like us to look at is what are the issues around protecting people's rights and around empowering people who feel vulnerable to be able to use something like pepper spray. Now, even in jurisdictions, many people have said, oh, well, this is going to lead to guns and stuff like this. Well, the thing is, even in jurisdictions in the United States where concealed carry of firearms is legal, what you find is that actually the most common tool used for self-defence is not firearms, it is pepper spray. And there's very good reason for that. Pepper spray is cheap, it does not require significant training, it is non-lethal, unlike a firearm. It doesn't require special maintenance or skills to use. And it's small and can fit in your pocket or in your handbag or wherever you want to hold it. And it's reasonably effective. In fact, it's so effective that we have PSOs around Parliament who carry it and police on the street that also carry it. During the pandemic, there was an issue around PSOs we looked at last term, actually, Mr. Borman. But so it's well established by law enforcement that pepper spray is an effective tool for self-defence. And I saw it used many, many times during the pandemic. In fact, one time I saw it being sprayed from above a cliff down into a crowd of people, which sort of seems to indicate that they don't really think that it's going to cause significant harm, even though it may incapacitate people. One of the other arguments against legalisation of pepper spray, which I would really like this committee, this inquiry to look into, is people talk about, well, we don't want to have that because the pepper spray might be used for initiating crimes. To that, I would respond with 2 points. The first point is that criminals don't care about the law and they already have access to weapons like knives and things like this, and guns and whatever other weapons they choose because they do not respect the law. People that assault people in the street clearly are not law-abiding citizens. But the second point is pepper spray itself is pretty ineffective for committing most sorts of crimes. If you threaten someone with a knife, they may do what you ask them to do, but if you spray someone with pepper spray, you can't touch them. You can't go near them because you will get burnt, and it's not a particularly useful thing for crime, for people who want to commit crimes. Another argument against pepper spray is people, and I remember back in 2019, Mr. Borman raised this issue back in 2019, and I remember one of the comments was, we don't want women to defend themselves, we want men to stop harming women. And look, I agree that we do not want men harming women, we don't want anyone harming anyone actually, I fully support the idea of no man harming a woman, and until we get to that point where that doesn't happen anymore, we need something in the meantime, because the other fact of the matter is that the police cannot be everywhere. The police sometimes prevent crime, but in most cases police are investigating crime that has happened after the fact. They do not, they cannot be everywhere, it's simply impossible, and therefore in many cases people are forced to become a victim and then report this crime. And what I want to see, you see lots of videos, awful videos of crime accidents, crime incidents where people are attacked and this sort of thing. And one thing that's interesting when you look at countries that have pepper spray legalised, you often see different types of videos. You see videos with the vulnerable people, the people who would normally be victims, fighting back against crime. And that's what I want in Victoria. I want the people who feel vulnerable, who feel scared of criminals, who don't want to become victims of violence, they don't want to become victims of crime. I want them to have the opportunity to fight back. At least give them that power. If you talk about empowering people, empowering women or empowering vulnerable communities in Victoria, how can you say that you empower people when you force them to be victims against people who are stronger and more aggressive than they are? It's wrong. You need to give them a fighting chance if they want to do that, and I think that's the way to go. I'd like to acknowledge one person who's been campaigning on this issue for some time now, Jade Howard. She's a content creator on Instagram. She came into Parliament yesterday actually, and she was very interested in what was going on in Queen's Hall. But she's been campaigning on this for a long time now, and she's got a petition which people should sign if they are so inclined. I think it's just hit 15,000 signatures. She wants women to be able to carry pepper spray for the purposes of self-defence. Like many women, like many people who have been victims of crime, they don't want to be a victim again, and they want some sort of chance to fight back. And I think that it is wrong that we deny people the opportunity to defend themselves and stop becoming victims. It's time for Victorians to be given the power to fight back against crime.